was Evergreens. I think it's, I forget what the original title was, like Color with Evergreens or something like that.
Evergreens that show off in winter.
Oh, evergreens that show off in winter. So yeah, all the great fall color is happening now, but a lot of them are starting to lose their leaves. Things are starting to go dormant. And it's a really good time to assess your yard and decide if you need some more evergreens in there. Because sometimes it's really easy, either the landscaper put your landscape in or you moved in with it already there. And we tend to get a lot of leafy stuff in there, a lot of deciduous trees and shrubs. And in the winter, fall and winter time, early spring, you look out and you got nothing, right? You got branches like this out in the yard. So it's really a good time to assess your yard and decide if you want to get some more evergreens in there. And there are a lot of terrific evergreens. I think a lot of people just think, oh, little Christmas trees. Whenever you think evergreen, you think spruce. But there's a lot more than just that. You can tell I brought an assortment up in here to kind of just give us a wide coverage of the different types of evergreen trees and shrubs. And I know I did not catch everything that there is. So good time to go out. Stand, like I always say, stand across the street or stand in the back of your yard and kind of take a look at it and go, do I need some more color out here through the fall and winter? Just it's a good time to assess it and see what you need in the yard. A lot of your evergreens, I'm just, because we were talking about digging, a lot of them do well in containers too. So don't be afraid to put your evergreens in containers. A lot of them do terrific in containers, especially because they're very slow growing. So they're not going to overgrow a container anytime soon. So don't think you have to dig if you can't dig. You can put it in a container as well.
How many years can they go in a container?
Depends on, it kind of depends a little bit on the type of tree. So if you were to go with, this is an Alberta spruce, they grow like half an inch a year.
Right.
Right. So you could keep that in a container 7, 8, 10 years.
Okay.
And it's not going to overgrow its container.
Okay.
Now, if you put an Austrian pine in a container, which wants to grow about a foot and a half, up to 2 feet a year, it will outgrow it rather quickly.
Okay.
So kind of you need to assess what you're putting in that container. So yeah, evergreens out in the yard. So I thought I would start with the ones that are tough. They're drought hardy, they're kind of foolproof, very easy to grow. And when we talk about that, we have to talk about the Arizona cypress. I think it's a native for here, it's indigenous. We're gonna let the sirens go by. Oh, maybe they're going now. It's one of, if you're looking for a larger tree for your yard, or you need a screen type tree, I think Arizona cypress is probably one of your best choices. It's probably going to get at maturity 25 to 30 foot tall and about 8 to 10 foot wide. But it's one of those trees that you get it started, you get it going in your area, and you could, after 3 to 5 years, you could take it off of any kind of water source if you wanted to. That being said, it's always going to perform a little bit better if it's getting some water. So I know a lot of people are putting them, especially out in the bigger properties in Chino, Paulden, they kind of put them way out, kind of on the barriers. They're using them as wind protection and screening, just kind of protecting their property. And their plan is to take them off of the water, which is fine. But when we go through really long periods with no water, no rain, it's a good idea to irrigate them. It's just going to keep them stronger. You could technically let them go, but when we let even your native trees go for a really long time with no moisture, it tends to weaken them, it tends to stress them out a little bit, And a stressed tree is kind of like an invitation to pest problems and diseases. So it's good just to keep them healthy, and that way you don't have to worry about other problems coming
Will
along.
that one do okay in real rocky soils? It will.
It will. Yeah. Arizona cypress is very adaptable to our rocky soils. It's very adaptable to our alkaline soils. So it just does really well here. The main thing that people tend to do with it is they kill it with kindness. So they tend to overwater it. Because some of our soils are very clayish as well, and that clay soil just holds on to that moisture forever. And we start thinking, oh, I need to water it, and we're just kind of basically rotting the roots off of it. So those really drought-hardy trees, we need to be careful not watering too much. So Arizona cypress, if you're looking for something tall, something tough, a nice evergreen, does very, very well here. It does, so this is the Wichita Blue juniper. It is also native to our area. Doesn't get as big, so if you need a smaller evergreen that's tough as nails too, Wichita Blue gets 12 to 15 foot tall and about 3 to 5 foot wide. So it's a little bit smaller tree, but just as tough. A lot of people, you know, poor junipers, they get such a bad rap. But this is not the bad juniper. You know, the junipers that give us all the pollen issues, those are those great big natives that we all have in the yard, the alligator junipers. They're the ones that just throw that pollen off every spring. So here comes some fire. But these junipers are not, they're not going to give you the problems like the big ones do. So the Wichita Blue, they're again fairly native to our area. You'll see them out if you walk in the forest or just like Williamson Valley out that area. You'll just see them growing out there. So they are a tough tree. They do very well here. It's a good one to put in. This tree is a single leaf pinyon pine. It's a cousin to our native pinyon pines that we see around here all the time. So they're, ooh, oh! So it's a cousin to our native pinyon pine that we have in our area. A little bit different growth habit. You can see the needles. I feel like I'm echo.
She's a little
Is a little bit longer, but it is very slow growing. So it says, you know, it'll get to 10 feet, but it also says it'll get to like 30 feet, but it'll take, you know, my grandchildren and their grandchildren before it actually gets that height. So you can definitely put it in the yard. You can put it in a spot, and that's maybe a little bit smaller spot that you want it, put it in, and then go, and I'll let the other people worry about it. Because literally it will take a long time for it to get some size to it. But very drought hardy, doesn't want to be wet. All those trees that I've mentioned so far are ones that are not going to want to have wet roots. So if you are in a spot where you have a lot of rock, or you have a lot of clay, or a lot of caliche in your soil, I always recommend, if you're putting that type of tree in, do a perk test where you're going to want to put that tree. So dig your hole, run some water in there. You want that water to be gone probably within 6 to 8 hours or less. If you go out later and there's still water in that hole, you have a bad hole. And no matter how badly you want one of those trees there, you have a bad hole, and a tree is not going to be happy there. You know, you can try, if you've got a layer of caliche blocking you, you can try and poke a hole, do a chimney past that layer. And sometimes that will work. It kind of gives you a drainage hole there. But sometimes what we don't know is sometimes there's a huge boulder under there and we don't know it, you know. So until you try to get past it, you won't know. But I just tell people, if you've got a bad hole, no matter how badly you want that tree there, you're going to be fighting it constantly. It may live for a year or two, but eventually it's going to succumb because they do not want their roots continually wet. They like a really good big drink, but they like time in between to get that oxygen in. And especially your evergreens, you want to kill an evergreen fast, keep it too wet.
Do you fill it with water only halfway, or?
You want to at least fill it halfway.
Halfway.
Yeah. See how it drains. Very important when you're doing that. So while we're on digging holes, I'll cover real quick just how to dig your hole. You know, everybody always thinks, oh, I need to dig really deep. I need to dig a deep hole, and that's not necessarily the case. Here, more or less, you want a wide hole. So you, when you look at your container size, you want to do 2.5 to 3 times the width of your container. And depth size really only needs to be the same depth as your container. You don't have to dig this hole down to China. It really only needs the same depth.
Is that because they're native and they're used to that?
Some of it's because they're native. Some of it's basically the way our soils are here. They're so hard that most of our roots are all going to go this way anyways. They want to go more width-wise than down. So if you can loosen up that soil width-wise, you're going to help them because the roots will be able to move this way and root out. If you just dig a little hole and you put that tree or shrub in there, when those roots hit that sidewall, it's going to stop, or it's going to take it a long time to move past that sidewall there. So it's always better, nice bowl-shaped, nice and wide. Don't worry about so much deep. There again, if you have a very clayish yard, a lot of clay, another thing you might consider is putting your evergreens more up on a berm. Rather than digging that hole where the water is going to settle down in here, if you do it up on a berm, when we get the monsoons, the heavy rains, that water is going to go this way. It's going to slough off instead of settling down in there. And that really helps, especially during our monsoon season. And just when you're just generally watering, that water's not going to just pool right there. It's going to make it spread out. So if you've got that type of yard, I really encourage you to think about planting up a little bit on those berms. Really will make a big difference for you. So making sure you have a nice big wide is important. And then we always recommend adding some mulch in there. 1 part mulch to 2 parts native soil. And the reason we recommend mulch is because if you look at our soil, there's not a lot organically going on in the soil. So the mulch does a couple of things. It provides organic material for the roots, and it also keeps that area light so you don't get a lot of compaction. And that soil's not going to compact hard back in there. I mean, if you've dug in our soils, you realize how hard they are. And if we don't amend that soil, it's just going to compact hard again. And those roots are not going to be able to stretch out very easily. You don't want to go more than 1 part mulch to 2 parts native soil because you don't want your tree or shrub to get too comfortable. If you get too much mulch in there, the roots are going to go, oh, I'm happy, I'm rooting now, look at me. And then it hits the edge and it goes, oh, I don't want to go any further because I liked it here and I don't want to go out here. So you don't want to enrich it too much. Otherwise, you've created this little baby tree, and we don't want that. We want strong, healthy trees. We want them to continue to root out even past where you dug your hole there. So don't get too crazy with it. But definitely amend.
What
Yeah.
would you suggest if you have, like, I really don't even have much soil. It's mostly rocks when I dig. Like,
Right.
I would be sifting all day to try to find a lot of soil. So what would you recommend
So
as
if
a
you have,
replacement?
right, so if you have a really rocky, you've dug your hole and you've got more rock than soil, you definitely want to get those rocks out of there. We don't want to put those back in. What you want to do is get some topsoil. And topsoil is just basic dirt, nice and heavy. It's going to help fill that hole. So then you'd mix your topsoil, your native soil, and your mulch.
Okay.
And do a nice mix with that. So, yeah, you'll hear some places say, oh, you don't need mulch. Just plant your tree. You don't need mulch. It's better for it. Well, I've been in this area pretty much all my life, and I would beg to differ with them. I can tell when I go out to people's yards, I can tell the difference between a tree that was just plopped in and planted with our native dirt and a tree that was given some mulch and some more care. You can tell a difference. I think it's worth it. Really makes a big difference for them. When you get all done and planted and tapped in, if you want to put some more mulch on top, a nice layer around the top of your hole, that's terrific, because that does a couple of things as well. Helps keep the moisture in, especially in the summer months, and it also keeps the weeds out. So it kind of provides a couple different things. And then as it breaks down, there again, it's putting more organic back into the soil. But I forget where I was, but with really drought-hardy trees, just make sure you have good draining soil. If you're putting them in an area where drainage is so-so, really watch your watering. Be careful with it. It's easy to overwater with them. The other tree I have over here at this far end, this is a Spartan juniper. Another great tough tree. It's similar in height and width to the Wichita blue. Just has a definitely more green look to it, which some people like. So it's going to get, there again, 12 to 15 feet tall, 3 to 5 foot wide. It makes a really good screen tree or a tree for small yards. Nice, easy care. With all of these trees, they are very resistant to a lot of disease, very resistant to insect issues. There's just, you don't see a whole lot of problem with these guys ever. So it's a really good low maintenance tree to put in the yard. Another really good, I stuck him over here, but he could probably go over there. So this is a deodar cedar. Deodar cedars are, they're one of those trees that when they're young, they look kind of ugly sometimes. People look at them and go, I don't really like that tree. And I go, yeah, I get it. So they're kind of that gangly teenager, But get them in the yard and get them going. They are beautiful trees when they start hitting some maturity to them. Very drought hardy as well. There again, not a lot of disease that gets into them, not a lot of insect problems, want good drainage, but these guys get big. You're going to want some space for them. So you're probably talking 30, 40 feet tall, and a good 20, 25 foot span. So, and they grow fairly fast. So you can easily reach that span very quickly. So be careful where you put it. It needs some space. It cracks me up. I see this tree all the time put right up against people's homes. I mean, like right up against the windows or by the front door or by a driveway or a walkway. I will guarantee you it will outgrow that spot in no time at all. And you'll be trying to limb it up or shear it down or do something with it. It's not that type of tree. It's a tree that wants some space, so give it some space. But it is a great tree. It just wants some room.
So does it grow like a foot a year or something? Or?
I would say, yeah, at least a foot, maybe up to 2 feet if it's in a really good, happy spot. But don't disregard it because of the way it looks right now. But there's some beautiful ones around town. When you're just driving, especially more downtown Prescott, there's some really mature ones. But absolutely gorgeous. Prescott Lakes, not the newer part, but the older part of Prescott Lakes, Rosser, that area. There's some really nice mature ones in there. Absolutely gorgeous. So you just have to give it a little bit of time to show its true beauty, but it's a nice one. And then we get into some of our pines. This is the Austrian pine. So he's a little guy, and I picked him because he was easy to move. But this is another one that needs its space. It is going to get big. So it's going to want some space out in the yard. They're again 30, 35 feet tall, and probably a good 20, 25 foot wide. It's a big ball kind of shape is what it wants to do. Of the pines, this is the fastest growing. At least a foot, probably 2 feet a year after it's been in the ground a year or so. So it is a very fast growing pine, nice long needles. Of the pines, it's probably one of the easier ones to grow and the faster growing. Some people don't like it. It is going to do about once a year, and it's about this time every year, it starts shedding the inside needles, and that's a very common thing. It's just what it's going to do. It doesn't mean it's sick, harmed, anything. It's just putting on thicker trunk, thicker bark, so it's going to drop some of those inside needles and get ready for spring when it pushes its new growth. But some people don't like that needle dropping. You know, they're trees. They're not going to be perfect, but very fast growing. There again, got to watch your water with the pines. They don't like to be wet all the time. And the only insect problem I really see with these guys is the big tree aphids, the big black aphids. I don't know if you guys have seen those, but it tends to be in the spring for some reason. They like these guys. And you can kind of see, if you look at your tree and you have a lot of shiny on it, it looks like it's wet. Or if you look on the ground underneath, it looks like it's wet underneath. You've got an aphid problem. So you need to get it taken care of. Not necessarily going to kill the tree, but there again, it stresses it out to the point where it's an invitation for other diseases and other insects to come in. That's the only really thing I've seen on these so much, insect-wise. There are kind of cousins. There's the Oregon green pine, which is a really pretty pine, a little bit shorter needle, and it doesn't get as big, probably 15 feet tall, 5 to 8 feet wide. A nice adaptation for the smaller yards. Very dense tree. It's very pretty. I should have brought one up, but I didn't. And the other one that's similar to this would be the Bosnian pine. A little bit shorter needle there again, and it's a little more compact. These guys tend to get a little loose, leggy, big. The Bosnian tends to stay a little shorter limbed, and it doesn't get as big. So it's a really nice tree as well. And I think we do have both of those. If you want to see them later, we have both of those in stock. This guy, I have a love-hate relationship with this tree. I love it because it is, it almost has a variegated needle. It has like a silver green two-tone needle. Very soft. You know, most of your pines are kind of pokey. This guy, you just kind of want to hug him and love on him. Very, very soft tree. But he is a very temperamental guy. He doesn't like to be overly wet at all. So you really have to pay attention to the type of soil that you're putting him into. If it stays too wet for an extended period, it will just lose all its needles and throw up its hands and say, I'm done. I'm out of here. So I love it, but boy, be careful where you put it.
What is the name of it?
It's a Vanderwolf pine. Vanderwolf. The other name is limber pine. But it's beautiful and it's very unique, and it can add a lot into your yard. I just always say, just make sure going into a really good spot. Be careful with it. It is a little bit slower growing, definitely slower growing than the Austrians and the Bosnians. It's going to take its time getting big.
How big?
I want to say 20 to 30. Let's see what they say. We'll see if I'm right. Oh, I'm so good. 20 to 25 foot tall and 10 to 15 feet wide. Yeah. So very pretty. You just got to be nice to him. Go out and talk nice to him. Tell him how handsome he is. Good looking. And then I touched on the Alberta spruce a little bit as well. There again, great container plant if you want to grow an evergreen in container. Also great for those small spaces, or if you have a spot by your front door where you want an evergreen or a walkway. That's a great one to put in because it is slow growing. It's not going to overtake an area. It's going to behave itself. Only thing I've seen, those guys you got to watch for spider mite in the hot months. Spider mite loves to set up in those guys. So you just kind of, I always just say be prepared, assume you're going to get it, and just kind of treat for it. Because spider mites can come in before you even realize they're there and they've done their damage, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? So if you're aware that certain trees and shrubs have insects that want to go after them, you can kind of pre-treat, and then you don't have to worry about it as much.
And how do you pre-treat after that?
Well, there's a couple things you can do. The easiest one to do is when you're out watering, you can keep it hosed down. Spider mites love to set up where it's hot and dry. The other thing you can do is you can use neem or Captain Jack's, and when we kind of move into that hot, dry season where spider mites like to show up, you can kind of just, give them a good spray and just kind of keep an eye out for them. But hosing them down actually helps a lot, definitely. So those are kind of our piney evergreens. The other ones I didn't bring up here are Scotch pine, which is another really pretty nice pine. And I didn't bring in a blue spruce, but we have several located throughout the yard. Blue spruce I'll touch on real quick, the Colorado blues. You'll see Fat Alberts, which are a little bit shorter and fatter. Really pretty blue color. They really maintain their nice blue, silvery blue color very, very well. Within the Colorado spruces, you'll also see green. So if it has more of a green tone, it's probably going to keep that tone throughout its life. So pick a color when you're looking at a spruce and you're picking it for its color. Pick a color you like because it's going to keep that color, and it's really hard to try and change it. You can somewhat using soil sulfur and aluminum sulfate and that kind of stuff. You can help make things more blue, but they're like us. We're brunettes, we're blondes, so trees have their individual characteristics as well. The spruces do. So If you like the color, stay with that color, but don't think you're going to be changing it a lot. You know, some people, I want a blue spruce. And there's, within the spruce, like the hoop size spruce is a very pretty, almost light silvery blue. It's very, very attractive. But there again, it's one of those trees that looks kind of ugly when it's young, but matures into a beautiful tree. So there's different colors within your Colorado spruces, depending upon varieties. And it's probably too long a conversation for today, but if you're thinking about a spruce, talk to a nursery person and we can get you directed on the right color or size that you want to go with. I said the Scotch pines, Colorado spruce. Was there any other big evergreens I missed? I think the only other one I'll hit on is the arborvitaes, emerald arborvitaes. It's another one people like to use a lot as a screen tree. It gets about the same height as those two junipers, 12 to 15, about 5 foot wide. I haven't made up my mind on those guys yet. They can be somewhat temperamental. They're not as forgiving as the junipers. If you have an arborvitae, they're very lush, very green, but if you miss a watering or you short their watering a little bit, you're going to get a lot of crispy. And the thing with arborvitaes is they don't recover from that very well. So you just don't have a lot of forgiveness with them. So if you put them in, you've got to be very aware that they need that consistent watering. Yes?
What is your opinion about the Leyland vines? Because the contractors plant a lot of them, and in our home, like we purchased a new home, a new build, and they put those in there. And then I heard from a neighbor who likes the garden that they're not good trees to keep.
So Leyland cypress.
Cypress, that's
right.
Yeah.
Leyland cypress. For many, many years was a terrific tree for here. It was a fast-growing, green, it had everything we wanted. So a lot of people put them in. Then, I want to say, 5 to 8 years ago, they started getting a canker, which is like a bacterial type disease. And unfortunately, once that canker is in them, there is absolutely nothing you can do.
And what does that look like when it does that?
You'll see along the trunk, you'll get vertical slits along the trunk and it'll kind of ooze out. And then you'll get branches, like the whole branch will just kind of die off. And it breaks.
So the needles will turn brown or something?
Mm-hmm. So once it's in a tree, it will eventually kill the tree. Sometimes it kills it really fast, sometimes it takes it a while. So we have made the decision here to not even carry the Leyland cypress because it'll look good for maybe 3 to 5 years, but it will probably get the canker in it. And I kind of feel like why plant a tree that is having issues in this area.
And you can't pre-treat or spray or something to keep it, because some of them are fairly good size now. So.
Right. The best thing you can do is keep that tree healthy.
Okay.
And you keep it healthy by watering it, good, deep watering, and feed it. So keeping the tree healthy will help it. But once canker gets going in it, there's not a lot you can do.
Lost, huh?
Yeah. So my recommendation is don't plant it.
Okay.
I just think you're going to have too many problems. Go with Deodar cedar. It's a good replacement for it.
Okay.
Maybe even like a Hollywood juniper would be a good replacement for it. Something better that you're not going to have to worry about.
Okay, thank you.
What does it look like?
The Leyland cypress. There are some nice ones around town. They get really tall, probably close to 30 feet tall. They have kind of a nice pyramidal shape to them, very wide at the bottom. Trying to think where some are around town.
They're kind of breezy and
Yeah, I mean they're
open.
Yeah, I mean a beautiful tree. But there's people who have lost every single one of them in their yard.
Yeah, we've got a couple that aren't doing so good. That's why I asked,
Yeah.
just so that I know. Well, should I pull them out now? It sounds like I should just pull them out now and replace
If
them
they've
with
reached
something
that point of no return, if you can catch it early, you can. I've had customers who've really worked on saving them. Eventually they'll probably succumb to it, but they've delayed it.
else. Right.
But you got to catch it early.
I'd rather get rid of them than not
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Infection, that canker,
Say again.
that canker, that infection you get, is that transferable to other plants?
No.
Okay.
I was thinking if I
Yeah.
had one, I might pull it out and I might chip it and keep it growing for mulch.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He was asking if the canker that gets into the lelands will move into others, and so far it hasn't.
Okay.
It's been specific to the leland. It hasn't gotten into the Arizona cypress at all, or any of the other cypress. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so that covers our big evergreens. I thought I would just hit quickly on those leafy evergreens that a lot of people tend to forget about in the yard. So, of course, the big granddaddy of them all, which is the photinia. I had $1 for every person who's planted a photinia in their life, I'd be rich. But it is kind of one of those, it's fast growing, it's pretty because it has that nice new growth is always red. So it is a very pretty, fast growing evergreen shrub. It gets about, if you were just to let it grow, it gets about 10 feet by 10 feet. I guess my big bugaboo with it is people put it in their yards and then they keep it so clipped down that, it's like this big. I'm like, well, why would you plant a photinia if you only want a shrub that's 4 foot by 4 foot? Think about what you're doing. And the more you clip on those, the more it tends to be an invitation to get disease into them. I've just noticed the ones in my neighborhood at least, where in the yards where they're constantly pruning them, shaping them, they tend to get a lot of powdery mildew, and they tend to get a lot of like black spots and fungal diseases into them. So I think they're pretty, but let them have the space they want. If you're going to put one in, make sure it's where it can get some size to it. If you don't want something that big, go with a different shrub. Because they are pretty and trimming them is okay, but you don't want to be out once a month hedging on them. It's not good for them, and you got better things to do, right? So I like it, but let it be what it wants to be if you're going to use it. This is another one that gets fairly good size. This is the privet, Texas privet. There again, it gets, 8 feet, 6 to 8 feet, I believe, and big. Nice evergreen. Occasionally, if we get really cold, you'll see some winter damage on it. But you trim it in the spring and it just grows right out of it. So a nice big shrub again. It doesn't mind. I notice less problems with this if it's trimmed. It doesn't seem to have the issues that the photinia gets. So in the euonymus family, which is a huge family of plants, there's a lot of them that stay evergreen. So this one is chalapo, and this one's gold spot. Both evergreen. They're going to keep their leaves year round, but of course they're variegated. I happen to like variegated plants. Some people can't stand variegated plants. It's a personal choice. Some are more, like this obviously has a lot more yellow in it. This has a little bit less in it. There are some with smaller leaves that stay smaller. So these guys get fairly big, usually 4 to 5 feet. But there are some like the Ermogady, they get around 4 feet, and then there's a moon I think it's moon shadow, moon something. This stays really low to the ground. It's only maybe about 2 feet tall. So there's a lot of plants within that euonymus family that are going to stay evergreen. They do very well here. Even in the coldest of winters, they do very well. The thing I like about the variegated leaf is it's a way of giving you color. Everybody wants color out in the yard, but they want things that bloom. Well, a lot of the things that bloom don't stay evergreen, right? They go dormant. This is a way of giving you color out in the yard without blooms necessarily. So and they're very tough, very hardy. Only thing you gotta watch is if you have deer. The deer do kind of love to eat, especially the gold one. So be careful with that. You've got a lot of deer cousins. Heavenly bamboo, Nandina, is another evergreen, mostly evergreen. If we get really cold for a long period, I have seen them drop some leaves, but it doesn't harm the plant. And usually once we warm up again, they shoot a lot of new growth. And that new growth is usually that really bright red color, so it's very, very pretty. So they also have a lot of nice fall color, that red in the fall. Nice plant, very low maintenance, not a lot bothers it. What else do I have? Oh, I brought these guys out. They're going, but Lisa, those are evergreen. So these two, this is a red twig dogwood, and this is a pearl bark Japanese maple. So the reason I brought these two out is because even though they're going to lose their leaves in the wintertime, the thing I like about them is their stems have color in them. So you can see he's already got a lot of red color in the stems. So even in the dead of winter, you got snow around it, it looks really pretty because you have that red twig coming up. So you get color in that. This guy, he hasn't gotten too red yet, but as soon as he loses all his leaves, all his little branching and his trunk will get like a bright red color. Very, very pretty. You can't, Japanese maples, as I've said before, be careful where you put them. They need shade and they need to be out of the wind. But they grow terrific in pots. So I have Japanese maple by my front door that I love because even when it drops every single leaf, it has really pretty red branches in the winter time. So it's very, very pretty. I put lights on it and it twinkles. So you can get red in the stems as well. So I just brought those two examples to show you that even though they're not evergreen, you're getting color in the branching. So something to think about. And then, so I have to talk about snapdragons and pansies and violas. So these guys love the cool season. A lot of people, by the time their geraniums and petunias are done, they just think, okay, that's it. But we are very lucky here in that our winters don't get so cold that we can't grow anything with color throughout the winter time. Pansies and violas do amazingly well. They can take the snow on them and they're okay with that. They might look a little wicked when the snow's sitting there, but you take one nice warm day and they just perk right back up. So get them in your containers and they will last until, probably at least the first part of May. So you get color all winter long, you get color in the spring. Absolutely amazing plants. So I definitely recommend you get some of those going. Snapdragons, the same. They're going to love the cool season. They will take a bit of break from blooming in the dead of winter, but by end of January, February, they will start blooming again. The nice thing about snapdragons is the critters don't like them. So if you have deer, you have javelina, they're more than likely are going to leave these guys alone. Not these. They will eat them. Javelina will eat your pansies, they will eat your violas. So if you have heavily in your yard, don't put out pansies. Put out snapdragon instead. Ornamental kale is another one that goes right through the winter and will keep going until we get really hot. It's a nice one to mix with your pansies, but there again, if you have javelina, don't put these out. It's like a snack for them. They will definitely come into your yard and eat them. I have a black lab that will eat them. He pulls them out of my pots and eats that. So, must be tasty. Yeah, he likes his roughage. But nice color for those containers to go through the winter with. We all need some color in the midst of winter, right? Just real quick, I'll hit on the products since Michelle brought them up. So I was talking about the mulch to plant with. This is our premium mulch that we have bagged. It is all composted green goods, so there's no sludge in there. Some of your other mulches you can buy other places have sludge in them, which I wouldn't want to put around my plants, but you know, whatever you want to do. But ours is a really nice composted, comes from northeastern Arizona, is where they are pulling it from. Also a good time of year to start top dressing your plants to get through winter. So this is a good time to throw that little extra layer of mulch on top of your existing plants in your yard. Just gives them those roots, a little winter protection. Then as you go through your spring and summer, that mulch is going to break down and just get organic matter into the soil. Yes.
Quick question. I am totally not a gardener, so that's why I'm here. But in our yard, they took all of the rocks right up to the base of all the plants. Should we be like getting those rocks away and making some space there or something? Because all the rocks, like they go right up to the trunk of the plants, all the plants.
Yeah, so she's asking in her yard, the landscapers, you know, put the rock in the yard and they put it right up against the trunk or base of every plant. I am not a big fan of that. I would pull it away.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. I just think needs that opening, that air being able to move. And then in the dead of summer, when it's June and it's 100 degrees, and you got rock underneath there that's heating up, you know, it's not good.
Okay.
It's just creating more of a heat stress environment than those things need.
Okay.
I like to give it some space. I think it's healthier. It's easier to get
mulch down.
Right, yeah. And then it's also easier to get your food around it as well. So yeah, I definitely recommend some space on those.
Like as wide as the canopy or something, or wider than the canopy?
You know, probably for now you can get it as wide as the canopy, but as a tree matures, you're not going to be able to. But, you know, just a nice, depending upon the size of it.
Okay.
You know, if it's, so as they mature, you might pull it back a little bit too.
Okay.
You can also use shredded bark, the shredded cedar bark. Makes a really nice kind of mulchy top dressing as well, if you want to give it a little more elegant look.
Okay.
It works really well, and there again, it's going to kind of break down, so it's going to break down and get more organic into the soil. And the cedar bark also works somewhat as a repellent, insect repellent action too. So it's a good one to put down as well. It's what we use in our yard a lot. When you plant, using the root and grow, it's a rooting hormone, it has rooting hormones in it, so it helps with transplant shock, and it encourages new root growth, which is what we want. We want those new roots growing out as quickly as possible to get the tree established. If you have a tree or shrub that's just struggling, for whatever reason, it got stressed out, got too wet, got too dry, it's just struggling, you can use the root and grow on that as well. Even if it's been in the ground a while, that's okay, because those rooting hormones are going to encourage new root growth. So I like to use it for plants that are just stressed out. I think it makes a big difference for them. And then feeding, you know, you want to try and feed, optimum would be 4 times a year. then you kind of go down from there. But I always tell people, if I was only going to feed one time a year, I would feed in the fall. Because feeding in the fall gives those roots more energy. They're going to store that energy, they're going to be healthier, and then when spring comes and that plant is going to push its new growth, it's got all that energy stored, and it's happy and it's healthy. So in the spring, it's going to push a lot of nice new growth for you. A lot of people don't think feeding in the fall, they just think in the spring. Well, fall feeding is kind of like a preload, right? It's kind of getting it ready for that spring growth. So to me, the fall feeding is more important than even the spring feeding. The other thing I would tell you is winter water. So a lot of people have moved from areas where they never watered in the wintertime. They wouldn't think of watering in the wintertime. It'd be crazy to water in the wintertime. Well, we are a lot drier here. And our winters sometimes can be very, very, very dry. So we recommend a twice a month watering on all your trees and shrubs, even your lawns, throughout the wintertime. If we get a really good rainstorm, skip a watering. If we get 6 inches of snow or more, you can skip a watering. But kind of pay attention to the weather, because when was our last storm that we've had? It's been, at least 2 months now? A lot of people shut their irrigations off when we had all the monsoon, and they've kind of moved on with life, and they forgot to turn the irrigation systems back on, and we've been in the 80s, for a while, and it's been hot and dry. So you just can't do that here. We don't have that moisture factor. We have no moisture in the air. It's very arid, it's very dry. So don't forget to water. Very important, especially in the wintertime. When you don't water in the winter, come spring, when all those trees want to leaf out and push their new growth, if those roots got damaged in the wintertime, the tree is not going to leaf all the way out. You ever seen in your neighborhood when the trees only leaf to here, but there's branching here? That's winter dryness damage, because it didn't get enough moisture in the winter, so it goes, okay, I can only put leaves out to here. I don't have enough to do all of this. So you'll see it all the time in your neighborhoods. So make sure you winter water. Even if you shut your system down, take a beautiful day, connect your hose, and go water. Because we always have beautiful days. Even in the dead of winter, we have some really beautiful days. So very important to winter water. I think I covered it. Yes, sir.
I have a question from the live stream. We're live streaming on Facebook.
Yes.
And Facebook is everywhere. So this person didn't identify where they're located, but they did ask the question, where specifically are these trees best used for?
Okay.
Northern Arizona is an answer, but are there other areas in the country where they'll do well?
I'm sure there would be. It would be all on zones. So Prescott, we're in a zone 6B, the USDA zones. So we share that with a lot of the Midwest, Ohio, back in that area. Maryland, there's a lot of 6 to 7, 5, 6, 7. And all of them would do very well in those locations. So I wouldn't think there'd be a problem. But as with anything, we're very dry. Some of those places have a lot of humidity. So I don't know, maybe the Arizona cypress might struggle a little bit with the humidity, where it doesn't mind our dryness. But, until you try, who knows? You got to try things, if they do well or not. That's what gardening is half the time, is just experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't. So, yes, sir.
In hiking around the area, I admire the bark on the manzanita, and it's probably not evergreen, but can you talk about the culture of growing them in your yard?
Yeah, so manzanita, beautiful, and they are evergreen, actually. The one that we get that is as close to the native is the Howard McMinn, is the variety. And they do very well here. There again, it's one of those, it's one of those critters that you've got to watch your drainage in your yard. Where you put it has to drain well, or be very aware that it doesn't want to be wet. It wants a good rain, good soaking, but don't keep it constantly wet. It will just rot off and die. So.
Good one for the top of the farm.
So it does very well here. You just have to, there's another low growing variety called Knick-Knick, which is a good ground cover manzanita, and it does very well. Very low maintenance, nice evergreen. But there again, watch your watering. Be aware of the plant that you're putting into your spot so you know how to water and take care of it. But you know, manzanitas, don't be digging up the native ones and trying to move them into your yard, because they will not move. They don't like to be transplanted. So a lot of people think, oh, they're just growing out there wild. I'll just dig one up, nobody will know, and I'll put it in my yard. And I almost guarantee you won't be successful. Those native plants are really hard to transplant. They don't like to be transplanted. Made me think of something else, and now it sucks getting old. It'll come to you later. Oh, I know what it was. Camellias. So back on this table and over there are ice angel camellias. So in our areas, your average camellia that you grew in California or in that area is not going to winter over here. We get too cold. But the Ice Angel series does well here. You want to put it in a spot where it's like an eastern exposure, or where it's going to get filtered light. It is an evergreen, and they're going to bloom. Let's see if I have some white ones. The white ones are over on that table. They're already starting to bloom. So they bloom November, December. And the two pink varieties, there's a light pink and a dark pink variety. They start blooming about February, March, April, somewhere in there. But very, very pretty, very different. You know, a lot of people think they just gave up their camellias when they moved here, but these are terrific and they're beautiful out in the yard. Just be careful where you locate it.
So filtered sun.
Right. Eastern exposure or filtered light. But yeah, look at them. Very, very pretty. I can only get them. This thing about these camellias is I get one truck a year with camellias on it. And that is the only time I can get it because of the shipping laws and blah, blah, blah with the Arizona. So you can only ship them one time a year. So I get one truck. So if you're interested, don't wait too long, because when they're gone, they're gone.
Where are they native to?
Well, they grow them in California. That's where these came from. So it's a Monrovia, one that they patented. It's called their Ice Angel series. But it will winter here. I've tried it at my own house and done very well with it. So, okay, I think that was it.
How big do they get?
You know, I think it says on the tag 6 to 8 feet. I grew mine in a container.
Okay.
And did very well in a container.
Oh.
So, okay. Whew, I kept it right in an hour.